board is. Hi, everybody. This is Kathy L. Murphy, the Pulpit Queen, and I'm reporting live from my little cabin in the woods, Murphy's Law, here in East Texas. And we have with us tonight Dianna Rostad, who has got a wonderful new novel called You Belong Here Now. And it was quite the little buzz after Girlfriend Weekend. I think I had more of my book club members email me afterwards what a pleasure it was to meet you. And they had lots of comments of how much they couldn't put the book down. In fact, Ginger Bailey from my Houston chapter is madly reading it right now. So we're really excited that you're here. And you are reporting from where? You've got a beautiful library behind you.
I'm actually in Naples, Florida right now. I'm down here because my daughter just had a baby and I want to spend time with my grandchild. So I'll spend time in Florida and then I'll go back to the Pacific Northwest and go back and forth and just try to, hang out with everybody. I've got a son on the other coast as well. So.
And what a cute baby. I saw the pictures up on Facebook, but Naples is where Jeffrey Matthews is my new co-host is living. So how cool is that?
Very cool. We're going to have some dinner soon.
Oh, yay. Well, we want take pictures and post them so we can have a full report. And here's Jeffrey Matthews right now. We're talking about your ears burning.
Hey, Jeffrey, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Excellent. Nice to see you again.
Good to see you. And we're in the same town, right?
I know.
Well, all these coincidences, isn't that cool? I think it's just amazing.
It's very cool.
Yeah, it's great. And so we've got a group. There's going to be more that are going to be jumping in. But what I want you to begin with tonight is I got a hair. I found, here's our other Jeffrey coming in. I have, you had such an interesting talk on what you've been doing with your life that I want you to tell a little bit about your backstory and really, how did you become a writer?
Well, it was a long journey actually. My kids were getting older and they were in high school and I had always worked previously, but my ex at the time was traveling and it just wasn't possible. And so I was always a great reader. And so he said, why don't you try writing? And I had already been tooling around with little short stories and whatever. So I just, I got onto this tangent with Lord Byron for many years. I don't think obsession is too light a word here. I spent 9 years really doing a deep dive on him. But somewhere in the middle of that process, I came across this article, on CNN about the orphan train. I thought, wow, I've never heard of this before. This is like 76 years of our history. And so I was fascinated and I started doing all this research on it. And I saw all these photos of these kids lined up on platforms and hanging out of trains. And these kids reminded me, and based on their back histories as well, of kids that I worked with in South Central Los Angeles after the Rodney King riots. So my big real job was to help these kids get jobs once they paroled. They were youthful offenders. And so these kids had the same backgrounds as these kids from the 20s that came from, the streets of New York. They were in gangs. They didn't have parents. They might have had an auntie or a grandmother very loosely, helping them or something like that. But their entire backgrounds were the same. So I really felt like I was the right person to tell this story. I just didn't know where to set the book. And I had this whole storyline and everything mapped out. I was living in Texas at the time, actually, in Flower Mound. And my dad comes to Christmas. And he brought all of these amazing photos of the old family ranches. In fact, I have some of them here. I don't know if you guys can see this.
Oh, you'll have to post these too on the blog.
And all these pictures of people in boots and things.
I love it.
And so, it just broke open this whole wide world where I can see all of my characters inside. And so from there, it was just so easy to start, basing, family members on characters. Like Papa in the book is my father and my grandfather. A lot of the lyrics, the songs that he sang, the old legends, all that stuff is in there. My entire family helped me with this book. If you guys have seen that video that Kathy put out, My father's bookshelf. I go into detail about, how great my father was in, just helping, to help me. I mean, just with every little thing, like old cars and tires and how you shoot a rifle over a shotgun. And, we argued over whether butane was a thing in 1925, and that was kind of funny too. So,
That's really fascinating. So
yeah.
where's your family originally from?
Well, my dad and his family, they're from Montana.
Okay.
My mother's side are from Arkansas, and they met in a little town in Washington. And so that's where I'm from, Washington.
Wow. Well, that's incredible. So how long what was the process on writing this book?
It took years. I just kept going back and forth between this book and my Lord Byron book. And when Christina Baker Klein did so well, and the industry had proclaimed that biographical fiction was dead, which they do these things from time to time. Like I've been writing so long, I can remember when there was a thing called chick lit, and it was
Oh
also
yeah, I remember. I did not like that phrase.
and it was also dead. So, but now it's back, and it's called rom com.
Yep, I saw that.
Yeah, so and I just would push and pull this, but then I met with Marley in Minneapolis, and I pitched her the Byron story, and she loved it, and I sent her some pages, but she said that she had a direct conflict of interest, and so I was like, okay, I'm just going to write this orphan train story, and I'm going to go for it. I'm going to really just put on the gas, and so I called her up like a year later, and I said, Marley, I said, I've gotten all these executive editors to take my book, and I named them off, because I was leaving her a message. And then I gave her my 1 or 2 sentence, spiel on the book.
Bill.
She calls me right back. She reads the book over the weekend and offers me representation by Sunday. And so I was just sort of gobsmacked because I literally stalked Marley Lusoff. I had a Google alert on her.
She's pretty special, let me tell you. She was my agent for my book too, so I know just how important that is. It's
It is.
wonderful.
And you
Yeah.
know how wonderful she is, how kind she is.
Oh, and her husband too. They're just a lovely couple and so smart, She knows the industry backwards and forwards, so. And she was Pat Conroy's, and she's Cassandra Conroy's agent, and a million Paulina Poroskova's, so many of authors that I adore. So yeah, that's great. Well, so you get the book done. Now, did you go pitch it to editors when you got it finished in New York with Marley?
She pitched it. Actually, the editor, Lucia Macro at HarperCollins, who ended up buying it, was one of the editors that I named off in that phone call to her, because I pitched to Lucia in Portland at Historical Novel Society.
Ah.
And yeah, so and she's absolutely a doll. She's so vivacious and alive, and she's just a great editor. I love her. So.
Well, HarperCollins is a wonderful publisher. So we're thrilled about it. Now, this is your first novel, is this right?
Yep, it's my first published, yeah.
That's hard to believe. I mean, it really is. And you spent how many years working on it, do you think?
Oh, goodness. So I saw that article in 2007, and I pretty quickly came up with the storyline. And then once I started to do research, I added in the wild horses because they were such an important element to that part of the world. And they still are today. And I actually do a lot of charitable work with the wild horses. Biden is really sick and tired of getting boxes from me with studies and books and letters from across the US, and colorings from kids, asking him to please save those wild horses. So
There's still a lot of wild horses. Back where I'm from in Kansas, they run the Flint Hills, and every time I go home, we go out to see them. It's fascinating, and it's lovely to see, but it takes a lot of care. There's a lot of people that volunteer to make sure that they have that freedom. So good for you. I mean, I know that's and I think anytime you involve stories of animals and then stories of children, you know, you want to know a person's character, see how they treat both of those, and also I always say the elderly. You know,
Yes,
watch people how they act around older people,
yeah,
and that tells you a lot about their character.
it
And
sure does.
evidently, you struck some chords because everybody was really excited about it. Is there anything in particular you want to share without giving the story away, or anything that is significant to you that you wouldn't want us to miss?
Well, I think the thing that is, I don't know, that strikes me with the most, I don't know, for my character Charles, who, he gets on that train and he just wants to be somewhere safe. He wants to be a cowboy. He knows that because he grew up, with his father telling him those stories back when he had a father before he died in World War I. And he wants to be a cowboy. And there's this scene in the book, and it's pretty early on in the book. And he walks up onto the porch and he has to take his boots off. And he takes them off and he puts them right in line with this big long line of boots. And at that moment, he finally feels like he's a part of something. And I think that for me is a really special part of the book.
Well, that's great. And I don't know if I would have known that if you hadn't have brought that to our attention. I want to bring everybody into the conversation because there's a lot of authors here tonight, and I know they have a lot of questions. So, because this new Zoom, I can only see those speaking. If you have a question or comment, just speak out.
I've got a question. Can you hear me, Kathy?
Yeah. Go ahead, Jeffrey.
Hi. Well, for one thing, Diana, it's terrific. You had a couple of lines in there that killed me. And I love great lines. And one of them is sweet grass for the coming year greened up the hills.
Oh,
I just thought that was sort of Hemingway-esque. You said in, 7 words what somebody could have taken a paragraph to write. The other one I like is when John comes to the house as a surprise and they don't know it. And Nara could see Mama's face in the kitchen window. It went still like an elk that spotted you and just wants to be sure what you are.
yeah. What insights. Those are great.
And then my favorite one is the last line of the book, actually. It's you talk about how there existed no blood that bound them all together. And it was for certain they were from a different kind of family. But then you say, but together they made one damn hard twist.
Yeah.
I just think that's great. That knocks me out.
Thank you. A hard twist is the colloquial term for the, you see this book right here, for the catch rope or the lasso in the high plains.
Okay.
So there was kind of and that was actually, it's funny, that was actually the first working title for my book. This is how I pitched it, was Hard Twist. And, and Carly said, she goes, Diana, it sounds kind of like it might be kinky.
Oh, no, I didn't think that way, but yeah,
Yeah.
you didn't know.
I did have a question, and that is, how hard was it to resist not having, how hard was it to resist having a happy ending between Jim and Nara?
It kind of was, but it would never have worked and it would never have happened really.
Yeah.
When you consider the characters that I drew up in that time frame. But it also let you know that she really was a woman inside. She had those feelings, and even though she had to scrub away all of her femininity all her life, she deep down really was a woman inside of her. And even though she had to work like a man, or I don't know if you'd say work like a man, but she had to sort of rise up in that male-dominated world. It was 1925 Montana, and it's tough. It's tough ranching just all on its own, but just try, to get men to listen to you too.
Well,
Try
thank
to
you.
get men to
Sorry,
listen to you.
yeah.
Good one,
Oh, can I
Sarah.
just add something, Kathy?
Yeah.
Yeah, I found that really bittersweet with, Jim and Nara too. And obviously when he just stated it at the end, everybody would be against him. He'd be kicked out. All he'd end up with was an old Indian. And it was just so sad, but absolutely true. And I'm glad that you didn't, go against the realities of that. So, really well done. Thank you.
Yeah, and I wanted Jim to have his say as a Native American man of that time, and he called her on the carpet a couple of times there. He said, "Look, if I was a white man, you wouldn't have walked away. Let's not, mince words here." I think he did have a voice in the book that was genuine.
It's good to give these people voices because we're just now getting a lot of the real history. So I love stories that touch on that, but we can't rewrite our history either. It was tough times for both Native Americans and women, and it was a hard scrabble, existence. So, but such beautiful words. It's wonderful. Anybody else want to make a comment?
I have a question, Kathy.
Yeah, Jeffrey.
Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Diana, I have something when you mentioned lining the boots up and feeling like part of a family, it made me think of one of my favorite writing books, which is On Writing by Stephen King. And in that book, he talks about thinking like a writer and seeing things just around you in the everyday life that others miss and don't think of as opportunity for, content rich, material for a story. What about, tell us about you discovering you think like a writer.
Gosh, it was such a long journey for me, honestly. I went through so many permutations of how do you write? Like, what is the method, right? So I went to a lot of Donald Moss's, seminars and whatnot. And he really, at that time, he taught a very spare writing style. He's like, don't, narrate. He says, just get down to it and just really write very sparely, lots of dialogue. And I was like, oh gosh. And, and I was basically writing movie scripts at this time. And I will tell you that I could write really good dialogue by the time it was done, but I wasn't telling a story at all. There was no narrator in the background. And so I contacted this amazing person, and I still use him today. Use him, what a terrible way to say that. He and I still work together. And his name is Andrew Willey. And he used to be an editor at Little Brown in London. And then he and his partner, I think, moved to Colorado. And now they're back in London. And what he does is he helps book doctor. He loves to teach writing. And so I worked with him, and he taught me how to tell a story.
That's great. Good advice. Yeah, that's great.
I'll forever be indebted to him.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Well, I'll ask another question. Since you just said that about the narrative part. So as I'm understanding what you're saying, you started out writing mostly dialogue rich, and then you added the ability to summarize and give narrative context, because it's a really complicated novel from all these different points of view. Children, and I think at one point you might even have the dog's point of view. I can't remember, but or else I just felt, I think his name was Blackie.
Oh yeah, Blackie, yeah.
Blackie, and so I think you balanced that really well. And at the end, in several places in the novel, you had to jump over time, and that's where your narrative ability came in. And I think you handled that really well, because it's complicated to get a balance. And at the end, you summarize somewhat of what was going to happen, but then you ground it in the dialogue and the scenes. And just thank you for that, because I really get tired of stories that just tell you everything. You brought them to life with scenes. So good job.
Yeah. Thank you. They have to have movement. I feel pretty strongly about pacing. and not staying at the same, emotional level, like flatlining, I call it. Because the story has to go up and it has to go down, it has to go up. And now I'm going through my new book and I'm finding I didn't put any funny moments in this book. And then I know that I have a character called, and it's a pig, it's a big hog, it's a big spotty hog, and his real name is Freckles, but he gets nicknamed Meanie because he goes after everyone, and especially the sheriff. Danny is one of the main characters in the book, and her dad. Every time he goes out to get in his car, this hog just, goes after him, and she keeps him in check with her slingshot. And I brought actually one of my dogs, Shadow, my old bird dog, into this book for also, some of those lighter moments. You can't just be always tense, you know what I mean? Because life isn't even like that. You've got to have some light, cuter moments. I don't know. So I do like to do those with animals, and I think that might just be a thing with me. You probably remember Charge from the book. He was a very funny character. When he played dead, so that Charles, he did everything. He tried knocking Charles off, running in through under, trees. And then finally, when he got sick of this guy riding him, he just decided he was going to play dead. And some horses do that. So.
Yeah, I had a horse that did that. So I was raised with horses, and my grandfather took his buggy through the county doing courting, as he called it. But I'm wondering, did your editor tell you to not use gender terms with the horses? Because I don't know if this was like an editorial thing that they wanted you to say it for the horses, but I've never known anybody who called their horse it. And you just now said he for Charge, so that's natural to you, obviously.
Yeah.
So these editorial changes, what happened with that?
Okay, so sometimes I think, if I recall, and I'd have to read it again, and I'm doing this again now because Star is a male horse, and there's times when you have pronoun confusion. And so you have to say it, or you have to use Star, because maybe there's another male in the scene.
Oh.
And so you can't confuse them. So I think you have to get around it. But I hate calling animals its, though. It kind of hurts me a little, so I don't like to do it. But a lot of times you do, in order to avoid pronoun confusion. So
That's interesting. I've never heard that ever brought up before.
mhm.
I'll have to think about that a little bit. I thought at first you were going to tell me that, it's now gone to animals. We have to make sure we use the right, pronoun or whatever.
They,
Oh my, I have a hard enough time as it is. So anyway, these are all really great points. And I know Marley as an agent is a big believer in keeping it lean, keeping this, why say something fancy when you can just say it. So did she have any say in the editing of your book?
Yeah, she helped me edit it a lot. In fact, that first book, just, because it was my first book. And then we went through other readers, and, oh gosh, I don't know how many times I combed through this thing to just, find every little thing that I possibly could. And it's almost like a sickness once you start doing it. Like if I'm trying to go, insert something into a manuscript in like chapter 8, inevitably I'll just sit there and start wordsmithing. And I'm like, what am I doing? I mean, you guys know, right?
Right. There was something else I was going to ask about Marley. When she came on board as your agent, did she ask you what your favorite book was?
You're asking me that question.
Because that was the first thing that she asked me when she called me up. She said, don't sign that contract. I want to take you to New York, but what's your favorite book? And it was just so, that's hard when you read as much as I do to pick a favorite book, but it was relatively easy because I have one book that is like the catalyst for every story is To Kill a Mockingbird. That was always been my favorite book. And she said, that's my favorite book.
Yes,
So,
that's my favorite book too.
and I
Isn't that
remember
funny?
Conroy, when we talked, his favorite book was North Towards Home. And I've tried to read it 5 times and I can't get through it. It's just the heart. And there's a movie out on the guy who wrote it, Thomas
Oh,
Wolfe.
wow.
You got to see it. It's really great. But it's interesting how these connections get made.
Mhm.
You know, years ago when I was a book rep, I repped, we had a book that came out that was recognizing the ordinary. And I can't remember the title of it. I wish I had a copy of it, but it was like every day you go out the door, every moment you get up, look for something you haven't seen before. And that's what writers do. And so I do that now and people go, you notice the strangest things. But when you start doing that, then other people go, oh, yeah, I've had that happen. Do you do that kind of thing too, Dianna?
You know, I don't know that I do. I don't know. Maybe not.
Are you an eavesdropper? Because a lot of authors say that they go to airports and they listen, or restaurants, or,
You know,
nope, don't do that either.
I've never lifted anything from anybody, but I've always wanted to. I've always wanted to remember. I'm like, oh my God, that person would make a great, but then I write historical. So, then I'm like, okay. Well. But then, what's funny is I'm so afraid of all these, this talk of war. I thought, I need to buy a ranch somewhere in a rain shadow of a big mountain and stock it up and stockpile things. You know what I mean? And so then I thought, oh, but you know what? My character Mimi, who came from German occupied France, is going to do that. She's going to be a hoarder. She's going to be, like a survivalist, if you will. She's waiting for the Germans to come invade in North Carolina. So that's, there's times like that where I'll lift from my own, neurotic personality. So.
Well, we all have little subtle tricks and things that play into our writing, and it's always interesting. But I'd never heard that about the pronouns before on pets. I'm always calling my cat a boy, and it's not. It's a girl, but it just doesn't act like a girl cat. Rush. Doesn't even have a girl's name. I go, come here, little boy, and then I go, oh, I mean, girl. I have a hard time. She just acts very, take charge, and I don't know. She's a strong cat. So, what do you think is going to happen from here? Now that you've written this book and it's been out there for how long?
April 2021. So we're going on 2 years.
Okay. So it's been out there. Are you working on another book?
Yeah, I'm pretty deep into the first draft of what I'm calling A Giant in the Mountains. It's about a young man with gigantism who's hiding out in the mountains of Western North Carolina. And I'm basing it on Franklin, and I'm kind of using Grandfather Mountain from Boone, and I'm kind of hodgepodging this up, but it's basically, it's a To Kill a Mockingbird meets The Waltons meets Where the Crawdads Sing. And basically, a young girl's going to go missing. They're going to blame this poor guy hiding in the mountains, and Danny, the sheriff's daughter, my spunky girl, is going to save him. She's going to stand up for the whole town, and she's going to save him.
It sounds fascinating. And I love to read stories about the marginalized, because it's very, we think we've had it tough.
Yeah.
And then we see a story that we just can't hardly, even fathom somebody went through. And so those stories are always, to me, very inspiring. And I think, okay, like Slumdog Millionaire. Anybody that's ever saw it or read The Kite Runner, it's kind of hard to feel sorry for yourself after you read books like that.
Oh, I know. Well, the book is about conforming and how, it's irresistible almost to conform, because we all want to belong in some way or another. And so all of my characters, the theme here is not belonging, it's conforming.
It's true. When you were little, were you quiet as a child in school?
Probably, unless somebody picked on me, and then I ended up in the principal's office, which is why Charles gets to beat the tar out of everybody and doesn't get in too much trouble.
Are you an only child?
No, I'm the middle child.
Brothers and sisters?
Yeah, I've got a younger brother and an older sister.
Yeah, it's the dynamic of family is always interesting to me.
Yeah.
And on how you do that. And you talked about working with these teenagers and the youth and how you were trying to help them get jobs and everything. That also probably played a significant part of your story because I mean, we definitely, every generation has its own stories, but
Oh, yeah.
you see patterns too, you know.
Yeah, several of the characters in my books, a lot of the backgrounds that came for Opal and Charles were informed by kids on my caseload. Just, you know, and a lot of their, you know, personality characteristics were based on like my kids and their looks or whatever, but their backgrounds were based on, you know, a lot of the kids on my caseload.
Do you ever hear from any of those kids today?
No,
No.
I don't even know if they made it. You know, some of them reincarcerated. You know, the recidivism rate is like 77% for that population, which is why they rarely give funding to help that, you know, youthful offenders. They'll give funding to at-risk youth, but not youthful offenders. And so, but after the riots, there was so much money flowing into the city of Los Angeles that our little nonprofit company was able to help that population. So.
Maybe those seeds will be planted on down the line. We hope so. It'd be really cool if they could read your book, you know, it'd be really cool.
But not sue me in case they saw themselves.
Well, can you share, do you have a title for your book or are you not sharing it yet?
Oh, the new book is, it's tentatively titled A Giant in the Mountains.
A Giant in the Mountains.
Yes, and I'm gonna get a way different cover this time. I've never liked that cover.
Well, it looks like a lot of other covers, you know.
It does, that's what I told them. I said it's too old fashioned.
The big publishing houses is they get a few artists that create all the covers and they start looking. I mean, I don't know how many book covers have a woman walking away and all you can see is her back, you know, and I just.
Exactly.
And for like when my book came out, you know, Divine Secrets of the Yaya Sisterhood was a big hit. So they tried to mimic, you know, the cover of my book with that. And I was not happy because my book is much more serious than that. Everybody goes, you have such a funny book. And I go, what's funny about it? I don't know. It's just funny. I go, the cover's funny, but the cover's changed now. But anyway, the cover's really important, I think. But you know, you had Marley pitching your book to me. So, you know, when she tells me about a book, I pay attention. And so, and you shouldn't judge a book by its cover, but we do, you know, we really do.
It's
so
super important.
I'm excited about it. So do you think it'll be out in 2024 or maybe later?
You know, it depends on who it gets sold to. If it goes to Harper, it'll go out probably much sooner. But if it goes to a different publisher, it'll take longer.
Yeah.
So.
Well, definitely keep us in the loop. Is there anybody else who has any remarks or comments or anything that you want to ask about her? Tell them about your contest.
Oh, well, you know what? I don't know if there's any readers out there, but I'm
we're all readers.
Kids.
Authors are the biggest readers in the world. So we're all readers.
Okay, so here's how I'm going to do it. I'm going to ask people to post a picture of a wild blue roan, like in my book. I think it's Huckleberry he names him, and post it onto my Facebook page. And then I'll choose the nicest one or the couple nicest ones. And I'm going to do a couple of book club kit gives away. So it's just this kind of stuff, you know, all the glossies, the history, and then, you know, the greatest part about this kit is that it comes with a linen bag. And I'm telling you that this bag, you can put your potatoes in it and put it in a dark cabinet and they will literally last twice as long as if you don't. And so,
Wow.
I mean, right, but there's my book, follow me for more tips, right, in the kitchen.
Well, you've got it up on the Pulpwood Queen Presents page, your contest rules. So everybody read it. I hope you win. And you can always share this with all your book reading friends. I know like Janet Oakley, who has book club tonight. She shares everything not only with her Pulpwood Queen readers, but her book club. So, you know, there's always somebody you can share the story with, and share Dianna's posts, because you may be the connector to get her another book to, you know, another person reading her book. So it's
Hey,
all
Kath-
about sharing our stories and joining the conversation. So
Kathy, can I, because Nancy and I had a great time with Dianna at Amelia Island. We spent,
see, I keep hearing this, Dianna. I tell you this, everybody's come up to me, and I had such a great time talking to Dianna. Go ahead.
and we spent a lot of time sharing publisher stories, and you had you've done some great promotion yourself, and I think, and you've got I think I saw 1,700 ratings on Amazon, which is astonishing for,
Unbelievable.
yeah, and for a first-time book. So how did you approach that, and how did you get that fabulous William Kent Kruger quote?
Well, William Kent Kruger was one of my favorite, contemporary novelists. And so when I went about building a website, I went out and I looked at his, and I thought it was beautiful. And so I contacted his website developer and I said, look, I'm a new author and I got this book coming out, and I love William Kent Kruger and I love his website. You guys built it. Will you build me one? And she goes, yeah. And I don't know who carolbookreporter.com is. She's been in the industry forever, right? So and she knows Marley, and I don't know this. She knows everybody. And so anyway, she goes, oh my gosh, really? I'll just talk to him. And I said, really? And she goes, yeah. And so I got his email through her. And, he sent me the nicest email. I almost fell out of my chair. I just couldn't believe, the kind words that he had for the book. So I was just so, I don't know, gobsmacked really to get that nice, blurb from him. So, and many others. Meg Waite Clayton gave me a wonderful blurb. My good
She's
friend
one of
Wayne
our authors.
Kendall.
She's fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah.
She's great. And you'll meet a lot of authors at Girlfriend Weekend that when it comes time for your next book, go, hey, we had this great conversation. Would you read my book and do me a blurb? And, most people will. I know that when I went to Pat and Cassandra Conroy and I said, I don't even know how to ask you this, but would you blurb my book? They just said yes. I go,
So
that
sweet.
easy. And they were the first ones to stand in line to buy my book. And I was just like in tears, to thank my idols. I've picked them more than any other authors in the world, the Conroys, and because I love them so much. But the whole family, really, they're all that way. They're just wonderful people. But yeah, you can meet a lot of people, and you might be surprised at who would be willing to blurb your book next time. So, you meet a lot of great people at our convention, and I'm already hard at work at 2024. And I was telling Dianna before we opened that I'm working on the venue. It's, we got multiple sources. So we'll see, the best one wins. So I will let you know as soon as that contract is signed. No hints, because they're all kind of different places. I don't want anybody booking rooms and stuff. So, but I'm still talking to everybody right now. But
I've got a few questions.
But everybody's gone on vacation or something. So, any questions for anybody while we're here? Yes, Jeff.
With the book cover, when you told them you didn't like it, what did they say?
Oh,
Too bad.
well, the first thing is, I had Marley's contract, or her boilerplate, as she calls it, and so they had to consult me on cover, and we had to agree on title, and I did finally come up with this title, "You Belong Here Now," comes straight out of the book, and I really loved that because it was a call to the place. But I told them, she said, "What would you most hate to see on your cover?" And I said, "Two kids sitting on a suitcase." And that's what I got. Two kids sitting on a suitcase. So, yeah, but sales was very involved, and they really felt strongly that it needed to be modeled on a Before We Were Yours, and we were just going into, everybody in New York was going into their houses, and COVID had just hit. This was March 2020, and so they wanted to do something safe. They didn't know that books weren't going to tank, but books were going to do wonderfully. They had no idea. And so they did something that was very safe. And I understand why they did it, but I'm sure that, they'd make a different decision today, based on, what they knew then. But I was a new author, and they had to do something pretty safe. So that's why sales was so involved with that cover. So.
Yeah, with St. Martin's pushing out the river, they came along with like 12 covers, and they consulted me every time. And then the 12th cover was all this gauzy blue. It was a romance cover, which freaked me out. So I thought I had some say, but they said, "Well, we know what we're doing." So, but then it went to the sales guy, and the sales guy said that this doesn't match. It's a historical fiction in Poland, and they came up with something that we all liked, that everybody liked.
Oh, yeah, that's gorgeous.
I love that.
And so even when I got the rights back and I redid it, I basically, I paid to get the painting again and redid it, actually better, I think. What's my other question?
I don't blame you. It's, these are our babies, and if we don't like what's on the cover, it's so hard to, sell it and feel
Right.
bad. It's like somebody put ugly clothes on your baby.
Right. Now, after 3 months with Harper, did they continue to try to get it out there?
They give you about 3 months, and then they do have to move on to the rest of their list.
Right.
They've got lots of people coming. So the one thing people I think is that once you get a deal with the big five, is that they will market you, and that's not true.
Forever.
You've got to get above about, I think it's 250, advance for you to be considered, to get those better. And if you followed the Simon and Schuster and the Penguin Random House, when the Department of Justice got involved, the whole case, they just totally pulled back that Wizard of Oz curtain, and I was just reading it every day, going, "Oh my God, oh my God!" I've got printouts of that stuff, and now they're selling it as a book because, hey, it's literally peeling back the curtain there.
Yeah.
That's wild.
Okay. So yeah, I'm thinking of, I've done really well self-publishing after experience with St. Martin's with 2 books, but then my editor left, and long story. So I'm thinking with what I'm working on now, I think there's a major potential. So I'm, wondering whether I should approach an editor and go the big route or not. May I ask Marley's last name?
Rusoff.
Rusoff.
What is it?
Marley Rusoff and Associates. RUSOFF and Associates.
Okay, all right. And lastly, I can't say anything about the book because I haven't read it, and I will. And I wish we had talked at the event.
Mm-hmm.
City, what you said you're in the Pacific Northwest?
Yeah, I own a home in Washington as well. So it's if you read Columbia River Valley on a wine bottle, it usually comes from like Tri-Cities, so Richland, Washington, Back
That's
on
the
the
city?
Horse Heaven, they're growing grapes on the Horse Heaven Hills and Badger Canyon and all kinds of places. So,
Yeah. I'm in Portland.
oh, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I grew up in.
And I was probably living in Los Angeles the same time you were.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
What
Back in
year
the
was
day.
that, Jim?
When?
What year was that you were in Los Angeles?
Oh, from 76 to 83.
I was there. I was
Were
in
you?
San Diego. Yeah, I was in
Ah,
California for about 5 years. Yeah.
yeah.
So anyway, well, we all get around, don't we? But that's the wonderful thing, because the more you read, the more you want to go, the more you want to travel and go there. So wonderful insights. Thank you. And do keep me up on Marley and everything. Marley was not able to come to Girlfriend Weekend because her husband got extremely ill, and she had to literally, just, what do I do? And I go, don't worry about it. I got you. I got you. I know these authors' books. I'm good to go. We did just fine, but we hope she'll be back next year, and we hope you will all be back next year. And besides, everybody who signs up that has not signed up is going to get a free copy of our February International Book of the Year, which is 8 Rules of Love by Jay Shetty. It's the #1 international book in the world. And he sent me 2 cases to give away. So I'm hoping that everybody will read the book. It's fantastic. I read it in one sitting. So any other big announcements you want? Are you going to be doing any signings or anything, Dianna?
I'm pretty holed up over here. I might get some things going in the summer when I'm traveling, but I
Yeah.
think other than that, I'm going to go back to North Carolina again. And I think I might do something with, it's called a Book Escape, the bookstore there. So, and I'm thinking I might try to get through Kansas, the National Orphan Train Complex there in Kansas. Yeah.
Where is it in Kansas? Because that's where I'm from.
Okay, it's just above, oh, don't get me mine. Oh, it's right in the center. That's all I remember, it's right in the center.
Near Hayes, Kansas, Liberal.
Maybe, it's in a little tiny town. It's not
I'm
near
from
any of the bigger
Eureka,
towns.
which is just in the southeast corner of the Flint Hills, not too far from Wichita. So I'm headed up that way too sometime this spring to summer. So anyway, maybe our paths will cross. Keep me posted when you're up there and I'll let you know. I've got a lot of friends. And if you're up in Kansas, be sure and check out Watermark's bookstore in Wichita. One of the biggest book signings I ever did was at Watermark's. They sold 3 cases, ordered 2 more, and I had to give them 2 cases. It was a huge book, but it's my home state. And I know a lot of people there, and I went to 3 universities there, so I know
Oh,
people
wow.
everywhere. And
Well, they showed up for you, that's
Kansas
awesome.
Kansas authors. So anyway, anybody else have any breaking news announcements on their books before we go?
I actually had one more question if we have a minute.
Sure, go ahead, Jeffrey.
So Dianna, now that you've written a book, it's been out a couple of years and you're writing a new one.
Mhm.
So many authors are headed your direction. They're publishing their first book. Their first book is just out. They haven't quite gotten their second one out. What advice do you have, or what is the most interesting thing or exciting thing that has happened to you? What would you share with anybody who's following your career?
I think the most exciting thing that I did was I got out and I did like a 50-day bookstore tour because it was COVID. And I realized that my book was on shelves. It wasn't out on the book tables. It wasn't a hardback, and they didn't get me into Target like they thought they were going to. And so instead of panicking, I said, no, I'm going to jump in my car and I'm just going to tour the United States. I put 10,000 miles on my car. I shook hands. I met so many nice bookstore owners. I met Barnes and Noble managers and signed stock everywhere I went and just shook hands and got to know people. And I think that more and more Barnes and Noble has the Waterstones guy, I forget his name, the CEO now. He's really running Barnes and Noble really well. And what he's saying is, he says, we're not gonna pick up every book. He says, you know, managers are gonna get to choose. And so more and more, I think it's gonna be really key to get out there and talk to your local bookstores, you know, whether it's Barnes and Noble or even, you know, independent. So it's almost like Barnes and Nobles will all become independents and they all choose their own books, right? So I think that was probably one of the highlights of my book coming out for sure, was just getting to go out there all summer and just give myself that space to meet people and really understand, you know, how these bookstores are reacting to the book. So
And you know, if you do that, you can always say, hey, Pulpwood Queens, Timber guys, I'm going to be here, here, and here, please. And if I see it, and if you tag me, I'll put it up there and say, in fact, I'm going to Kansas just so that I can see Jeanette Walls is going to be at Watermarks on April 12th. And I'm staying with my friend Heidi in Wichita. And so that's when I'm planning on going, because I haven't seen her. Since she was last at Girlfriend Weekend for, I think it was Silver Star Half Broke Horses, but she's one of my favorite people in the world. And she's another one of our success stories of Pulpwood Queens, because she went on to the Glass Castle, went on to film fame, and she's a lovely, lovely person. So she's on a national tour. Check it out. And I'm trying to post everybody. I know that Jeffrey Dale Lofton is really good about, you know, tagging me so I can improve it. You guys, everybody that's authors, all you have to do is you can post every day on the official Pulpwood Queen website page. All you have to do is tag me so I know to approve it. But I want you to do that, because, you know, that's part of the benefits of being a member, is we want to get you out there. And then I share it on everything from LinkedIn to Instagram to Twitter. I'll put it out there everywhere. So please share, share, share the love. Authors helping authors. It's big. And readers, we miss you. We want you back. So many of you emailed me today how much you're enjoying this book. Please come to our online book club meetings. They're amazing. And so encourage everybody to come. I think they
Stupid
have their
question,
own
Kathy.
meetings. Huh?
Stupid question. How do you mean, how do I tag you?
You just go that little figure down below and type in my name.
Okay,
You know,
Okay.
when you make a post, they've got these little figures down at the bottom of the page.
right.
And there's a little figure of a silhouette. You click that and you can type in as many names as you want to tag them.
Okay, all right.
Okay, if you don't, we'll figure it out tomorrow. If you can't if you
Okay.
can't, it's kind of hard to tell somebody how to do it, but it's not hard. Or just Google, how do you tag somebody on?
Okay, perfect.
Or just
Yeah.
find a 13-year-old walking around. They'll
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not quite that young, but I'll show you, Jim. We'll get on a
My
Zoom.
Okay.
grandson, who's still 3, he's about to be 4. He actually helped me get on the television set and hook up into Netflix so we could watch a movie. And I go, oh, I forgot to ask your mom how to do that. And he goes, give it to me, Mama Cat. And the next thing you know, we're watching Circus, you know, and
That's
the
cute.
new Netflix film. And I
Kathy,
was
could,
just
Kathy,
like, 3. He's 3, huh?
Kathy, could I just add something to what Diana said to
Yes.
Jeffrey's question? Because I thought her answer was great. And Jeffrey, I'd add one other thing about that. Going into bookstores, introducing yourself can be hit or miss. But what I found is occasionally you hit, and it's a wonderful experience. For example, the Barnes and Noble in Fredericksburg, Virginia, which is Civil War territory, I introduced myself to the manager there a couple of years ago on our drive north, and I introduced myself. I'm a Civil War author. Now, Sherlock Holmes meets Abraham Lincoln isn't necessarily. It's a lot of things, but I said I'm a Civil War author, and she immediately said, "Oh," and she wanted a copy of the book. And 6 months later, I get a call from her saying, "We'd like to have you come do a book signing." Long story short, she just invited me back for my 3rd signing.
Great.
So,
You go, guys. There
Not too
you
far
go.
from there. Let me know when it is.
so it's a way, think about your approach and where you want to go, and given your, your book genre. And, if you kind of give it some forethought, it'll really pay dividends.
Great, thank
You
you.
And
know,
not
further to
only-
that is, I actually did get a lot of requests to come back, and unfortunately Delta kind of killed that for me. That next wave of COVID came through and nobody was going anywhere, so. But yes, you get invited back to speak. It's like you're being your own publicist. It's awesome.
Yeah,
You have to be. And
Yeah.
also, you guys, if you go to a bookstore, or even if you don't, if you'll send them signed book plates along with a gallery or a manuscript, they're more than likely to order some copies, because autographed books sell better than unautographed books. So leave them some book plates and they'll order a couple of copies, and then you're on another shelf, so, and take pictures of every bookstore manager, buyer you meet with them, and
Yeah.
share that, because as a former buyer, I used to love when authors would come in and say, "Can I take a picture with you?" And I go,
Yeah.
"Absolutely, let's do that." And so there's lots of, you have to be your own publicist these days. So thank you. That was great, Jeffrey, both Jeffreys, and all of you that participated tonight. And Dianna, any last words?
Just thank you for having me, and thank you everybody for coming and having a lovely discussion. Appreciate you
Well,
guys.
this has all been recorded. I will have it up tomorrow morning on the Pulpwood Queen Presents her picks page, and it'll be up on our YouTube channel. Please subscribe, because I don't know how much longer I'm going to be able to give it for free. So if you subscribe, you'll be a free member, because they're upping all the charges on Zoom, and it's got to come from somewhere. So I may have to charge for membership to the thing, but please subscribe and join all our pages. And thank you, Dianna. We look forward to see what you're going to post tomorrow.
All right. Thanks for having me. Take care,
Bye.
guys.
Bye,
Congratulations.
y'all. We'll see you next time. Thank you,
Bye.
everybody, so
Bye-bye.
much. Bye-bye.